Okay, I'm going to do this video here. This is Capitol Hill. In Congress, look here. This is where you see the House Speaker and all of these guys. They're all gathered in the Temple of Saturn, yeah? Well, let's see the logos that are here and the symbols. First of all, we see on either side of the main chair here, we see two symbols that are identical mirror images of each other. These things are called fasci. They're from Rome. It's a bundle of sticks with a hatchet head. It stands for fascism. So here we have where the speaker sits, and on either side of him, in a country that's supposed to be free, we have fasci, which represents fascism. Now, why is that important in this case? Because in man's law, we call that justice. Man's law is called justice. God's law is called fascism. It's called fascism because you cannot question it. It is absolute. It is a do-or-die consequence. And who is the lawgiver? Who is the lawgiver? The lawgiver is Saturn. Saturn is the lawgiver. That's why you'll see the same thing across the boards. The judges in the chambers and in public wear their black robes representing Saturn. The pastors and priests and rabbis and police officers wear their black, which represents the planet Saturn. It's all law. And Saturn is the lawgiver. Now let's look above the fasci. We look and we see the clock. And the clock is embedded in what appears to be a scroll. Okay, because those are the laws, the old Saturnalian laws that are written. And within those laws, the clock sits. And who is the clock? The clock represents Father Time. And who is time? Time is Saturn. So here is the logo set in the form of a clock. And then underneath it says, "In God we trust." Well, what God are we speaking of? Not the God that you've envisioned in your head, but the God that they worship. The God that they worship is the planet Saturn. If you remember, and I'll throw it in here, when Barack Obama read from the Bible a couple of weeks ago, he said that the God that they worship is the God of Jacob. Jacob was the dude that stole the blessing from Esau. He stole it. There was also a movie made with Robin Williams that was called Jacob the Liar. Now, when these guys do something, they tell you the truth to a T. It's up to you to figure out what the truth is. Jacob was a liar because when he was getting the blessing from his father said, "Are you sure you're Esau? Because something don't seem right." He goes, No, that's me. Trust me. He stole the blessing. That particular screw-up is what's called biblically Jacob's troubles. And what that is that's coming up here shortly. You'll see Barack Obama is pushing for the Mideast peace treaty. That's what starts the real end of all this stuff. Because it's a 7-year treaty. At the 3.5-year mark, the treaty gets broke and the world comes against Israel to annihilate it. The Jews are being set up right now, whether they want to admit it or not. Okay? All of this stuff, and I know you'd say, well, why? You know, the Jews have the same symbology of Saturn on their flag and all this other stuff. You know what? It's their club. I can't answer that. All I know is that's what's going to be set up. So here, where men make laws and pass bills that affect your life directly, is a state of fascism. Okay? If we look, we have 4 pillars here. They're black with white caps. That's the Phoenician black and white, the duality. Okay? There's nothing holy here. There's nobody in Congress in the Temple of Saturn. There's no policeman. There's nobody in Hollywood or the CIA or the FBI that gives a rat's ass about you. Okay? The word Democrat comes from Latin, demo, D-E-M-O. It means group or mob. Ocracy means law. So now you have mob law. And the way it works, if I have this down correctly, 51% of the votes decide who gets what. 51% of the votes is mob rule. Okay? So that's what democracy is. So when they say we're over in the Middle East fighting for democracy, no, they're fighting for mob law. You know, back in the 20s or whatever, when they used to take black people out and hang them by their neck. You know, maybe 2 or 3 people said, oh, that's wrong, but the rest of them said, no, we're going to do it anyway. That's democracy, because it's mob law. Okay? So your rights are made and taken away in a place of fascism. And here it is right here. Go look it up. It's a fasci. They actually even put the symbol on the back of the dime. I remember them as kids. I don't know if they're on the Mercury head dime, but some of you people that are my age in your 40s and older, you'll remember the symbol on the dime. It's a fascist symbol, because fascism is God's law, and the God they're referring to is Saturn, the lawgiver, not the God that you've envisioned in your head that's above that, but the planet Saturn. And that's why all of this is referring to time and fascism. And they built a temple. It has nothing to do with anything to do with laws that you perceived in your head, or a belief system and a God that you had in your head. They did it all for you behind the scenes. They're worshiping another God. So that's the lesson for today.